said this is a very quick unit because there's just one standard. We're ready to go on to the review. And there's two worksheets here. One of them, I think you can get through both of them if you use the time wisely. We are kind of building on the second unit with some information here. So, we talked about earnings and pay stubs last unit. So here you've got a sample pay stub. It's for Pam Beasley at Dunder Mifflin. Okay, so it walks through. It's for an entire month. So you can see it's from the 1st to the 31st of May. So it's an entire month's worth of pay. It's got her gross earnings, then her net earnings, her year to date, right? So from January 1st until the end of this pay period, so through the end of May. Then we've got the deductions that comes out on her end, and then the deductions or the payments that the business makes on her behalf. Okay. So we've got that information. There's nothing to do necessarily on that yet, but now she tracks her spending. Okay. And so this is all the spending that she made during the month. What you'll need to do is identify what category each of these would go in on her budget. So if I look on the second page, okay, we've got a budget here that's laid out very similar to Gabrielle's budget, in which she has, in this case, Pam has her planned earnings and expenses. Okay, then you would track her spending. And so that information is here. So she tracked her spending. So eventually that'll go in the actual column. And then if there's any difference, that'll be calculated in this last column. So this first part is saying what category would each go in. All you are going to do is look on her budget and identify where we put that. All right, so this first one for rent, if I come over here into her budget, her rent is her housing cost. Okay, so I would simply put next to rent, housing. Okay, town and county grocer. Well, a grocery store, right, is going to be food at the grocery store. So I would put food here. All right, Scranton Electric. So an electric company paying for your electricity would be in utilities within housing. Okay, gas, electricity, water, garbage, and so on. So I could put utilities, and then that's within housing. Okay, and so on. So I'm going to go down this list, and I'm going to identify which category each of these would fall into. All right, next it says how much, if any, money did she have left over? So I'm going to compare her take-home pay to her spending. So her gross earnings for the month was $1,640. She had 473 come out for deductions. So her net income is 1166.19. So I'm going to compare that amount to how much she spent. Okay, if she had more money left over, I'm going to say that. If she spent more than she earned, I'm going to say that. Okay, now number 3, add Pamela's actual spending to the budget on the next page. So now I'm going to take this information, right, the amount that she spent, and then which category it is, and I'm going to put it in the appropriate category. All right. So for the first one, $325 for rent. Okay, I would put $325. That's what she budgeted. She's on a monthly lease, right? So that's kind of a fixed expense. So there is no difference. Okay. For food, $25.30. Okay, I might come down and put, where is it? Food, $25.30. Abby, what are you eating there? What is that? You flipped your camera on. I don't know if you meant to. Yeah, there you go. All right. So like I was saying, we had that $25.30 for food. Okay, but that's not the only time she went to the grocery store, right? We see that she also went to the grocery store here and spent $84.60. She also went to the grocery store here and spent $32. So when I come down and I had food here as well, I need to add up that $84.60. I need to add plus $84.60, right? And then she went to the grocery store again here, $32. So I would take that, right, and I would add that up, and then I would replace, once I'm done, I would take those numbers, add those up, and then replace it with the actual amount. Okay, so my recommendation is it's going to work out best if you go through this line by line, and if you get to one that doubles up, right? Her gas station, Quick Stop Fuel is here. Quick Stop Fuel again is here, right? She eats out a couple of times, so the meals at restaurants, you might have multiple entries. So what I would do is just go down line by line, put the numbers in. When you get to a category that has multiple expenses, okay, just continue to add those. And then when you're done, add those up and replace the numbers. So what do we got? 2530 plus 8460 plus 32. So 141.90. So now I can replace this with 141.90. Okay, so there's no grocery expense here for $141, but altogether during the month, that's how much she ended up spending. All right. So you'll do that and then complete the rest of this. So go back, see if her pay stub actually matched what she planned on earning and see if there was any differences. So go back and redo the top part for her earnings. All right, finish all of the expenses, add up her total expenses, and then indicate if there's any differences. Then come back here for number 4. Pamela realized she would like to begin saving an additional $65 per month for a new iPad. What are at least 2 ways she could adjust her current spending to free up that $65? Okay, so once you get done, you'll need to go back and kind of go through this and say, all right, if we needed to free up $65, where could we make those adjustments? Where could we make some cuts on current spending for next month to free up that money for her goal of saving $65 each month? The other review in the 3.99 folder, this is going to be essentially the format for the test when we get to it. All right. So you got, again, another pay stub. This one is for Stanley Hudson. All right. And then there's a link here to make a copy of this practice budget. So now we've got his, again, his categories over here, his plan for his earning and his spending. You'll put in his actual amount here. You'll notice that there's numbers already in the difference column. Okay, that's because I've already put in the equations to make this work. So for example, let's say his housing payment, right? Let's say, so he budgeted $1,365. Right now, there's no money in there, right? He hasn't spent any money on that. So when he makes that payment, $1,365, notice that went down to 0, right? No difference because it matched. Let's say he pays ahead on his mortgage. Let's say he puts $1,500, right? Now that went up to show that he paid $135 more than his budget. Okay, maybe let me take that out. Maybe for food at the grocery store, he budgeted $315. Maybe at the end of the month, add it all up, he only spent $290. Right? Well, that's going to show that he was $25 under budget. So in this column D, there's nothing that you need to do there, okay? Because the equations are already there. They will update automatically. If I try to adjust this, okay, it's going to say, whoa, you're adjusting something that shouldn't be adjusted. Okay, edit anyway. No, I don't want to edit that. I don't want to override those equations, so I need to cancel. All right. So let those equations just do the work for you. One of the nice things, though, about doing it within Google Sheets or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever is that each one of these little boxes is essentially its own calculator, right? As we just saw, we can put equations in here to do calculations automatically. So again, if I only spent $245, it's going to show that I was 70 under budget. If I ended up spending $360, it's going to show I was 45 over budget, and so on. So each one of these little cells, these little boxes, essentially are a calculator. So why is that nice? Well, we've got Stanley's pay stub here. So I can take that information and put it up here and see if there's any difference between what Stanley planned on earning and then what he actually earned. But then with his expenses, okay, remember in the first example, I had that put in each of those numbers and then calculate it myself and replace that number. Let's say for here, let's go through and I will do his grocery spending. Okay, so it starts out with money for savings. Okay, he's putting 75 into an emergency savings fund. Okay, that's 15 more than his budget. Cool. Second one, financial goal, $50. He's putting toward he put toward a financial goal. That was 5 more than he planned on putting in. Okay, mortgage, $1,410. Okay, so he paid 45 ahead on his mortgage. Okay, his car payment was $400. So he actually spent under his car payment. That's not good. All right, but then we get into Town and County Grocer, $131.20. So food at the grocery store. 131.20. Okay. And so I'm going to go down through that list, add each one of those. But now here's where it gets really nice is that when I get to a category that already has some spending in it, I can use the calculator that's kind of built into each of those cells to my advantage. So I put in, electric company, gas station, pizza, whatever. I get down here to the next time that he spends at the grocery store, 84.35. So what I can do is if I double click this, now I can edit within that cell, or I can come up into this equation formula up here. Okay. And so I can do plus 84.35. 84.35. Now, if I just put that plus 84.35, okay, it screws this up, and notice that it didn't actually calculate this. Okay. So I need to then come in and say, I want to make this equal to this equation. Okay. So if all I do is then put an equal sign in front, now when I have that addition, uh, you know, in the middle, now it actually did my calculation for me. And if I look up here in the equation, it shows me what was calculated in this. So I'm at 215.55. And how did it get that? Well, 131.20 plus 84.35. And now this again went back to calculating that correctly. Okay. Then I go through cell phone bill, pharmacy, more gas station, pizza takeout. Now I'm back at the grocery store, 43.55. So if I come back over here, I've already got my equal sign in the front. So now I just do 43.55. Okay, so I can add that immediately to it. That went up, this went down. Okay, it calculates for me. I go through, I add, eating out, clothing store, whatever. One more grocery store visit for 99.65. Come back up here, 99.65. And now you can see I ended up actually spending 43.75 more than budget. Okay, so if you simply put an equation, an equal sign at the front of that, then any of that math functions that you put within that equation will actually be calculated. Okay, so you can actually go through and use in this column, use the power of the built-in calculator of the sheet. All right, so on this review, this is how the test will look. It'll be using a Google Sheet like this. So I recommend you going through it as practice today. All right, so you've got the pay stub, you've got his spending, and then you would come down and you would calculate the differences, right? So let's say the total expenses end up being whatever, 36, let's say 80. Okay, let's say after all of this gets added up, okay, and again, you don't need to do this, okay, it'll calculate it up for you automatically. But let's say that I put everything in and I'm $50 off, right? Well, that $50 off here should be the same, right? 36.80 minus 36.30 is $50 difference. If I went through and added up all of these individual differences, it should also be $50. So that would be one way to check my answer, right? But then since the planned expenses is the same as his planned income, okay, that's going to mean that this is $50 off as well. His net difference would be $50. In this case, though, it would be negative $50 because if he overspent $50, that means he overspent or had an ultimate loss of $50 compared to his income over the month. So these two numbers should match except be a flip, right? In terms of positive, negative. If I spent less than my expected, let's say 3,600, right? This would be $30 under budget, which means that I ended up with 30 more than I planned on. Okay, so those numbers should match, but be the inverse of each other in terms of positive, negative. Okay, but I'll leave that up to you to calculate. Then for the second part, there it says assume that he wants to change his savings from 45 up to 310. So in the budget, instead of 45, he wants this to be 310. Right. So that's $265 difference. Right. So what you would need to do is similar to the first review where Pam needs to start saving $65 for her iPad. Now it's a much bigger difference. Okay. We got $260, $270, whatever it is difference. So now we need to figure out how he would adjust that. It says he also needs a new tire, which will cost $110. So for car repairs, right, instead of $50 going toward that, he needs to make sure that he spends 110 toward that. Okay, so I've got quite a bit of difference. I got almost, $400 difference in spending this next month. So the month of February has wrapped up. Now you're making his budget for March, and he has these two changes to his budget. So in order to keep his spending still at 3630, since his income is going to remain the same, 3630, okay, I need to make sure that I adjust now the plan for how he'll spend all that 3630. All right, so now the next month you're going to make those adjustments. The answer key here is already published. I literally just published it. All right, so after you go through this, you can check your answers here. The one thing that might be different is how you make the changes for the next month. Okay, but here are ones where some suggested differences, right? So there's so this must be 310, this must be 1410 for his housing because that's not going to change. I don't know why he budgeted more than his spending, but it should be 400 for his car, right? His repairs need to at least be 110 to cover that tire. But if you want to put more to it, you can. So there's some suggested differences here, but your actual differences might be slightly different or whatever. But anyway, you can look that over and see how that would have went. You go through, if you have questions on either one of these, reach out to me. Otherwise, we're ready to do our Unit 3 test on just this one standard. And like I said, it'll be very similar in format to this for the budgeting part. You'll also have some, multiple choice type or short answer type questions similar to the other tests, but the actual doing the budget will look very similar to this format. All right, so I'm going to turn you loose. Use your time wisely. Reach out if you have questions. All right, see ya.